Welcome to The Printer's Edge with LaManna, a podcast about how to sell, buy, or build a printing business. Now here are your hosts, LaManna and Ken Okel.
Welcome to the Printer's Edge podcast presented by the LaManna Alliance. Hi, I'm Ken Okel. In this episode, we're going to be taking you into the buying world. Last episode, we talked a lot about the selling world. Going to give you a different perspective this time. And remember, with this podcast, we take you into the world of the printing business. It's almost like you get to go to a trade show without the cost, the travel, all that stuff, just the good information. Let me welcome my co-host for this program, Mr. LaManna. Rock, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent, Ken.
Rock, I know you're always around and about, feet on the ground, checking things out in the printing world. What have you been up to lately?
Wow, it's been quite a whirlwind the last 60 days or so. I attended quite a few trade shows, exhibits, site visits all over the country, usually in the last 60 days in the Midwest. Associations such as TLMI, the SGIA, Imprint, AWA, and so on. So it's been very exciting to present this opportunity about buyers in this case.
Very good. So let's get into this month's topic. You have a unique perspective, Rock, where you're involved with all these sales. So today we want to kind of take people into the world of the buying side. So tell me about what we're going to be learning today.
Well, what's exciting about buyers is they usually should be in a position to be ready, willing, and able to close on a deal. So buyers should be in a position where strategically they should be very astute strategically on how to understand what they're looking for, what the potential is, the return expectation on investment, the chemistry of an integration, how experienced they are in acquiring businesses and so on. So it's very interesting sitting down with a buyer, and we're talking about all ages. But I will say this, the buyers that are proactively looking for label businesses, wide format digital printers, and especially packaging, because those are all the growth areas, is to really understand the competition, where they want to go, what the expectation is in growth, and also be prudent and wise and totally invested in understanding the process, because it is a process. The process to buy and acquire a business takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of collaboration, of having the right providers in a process, such as financial funding, who your partners are in that area, your legalese, and it's an integration, and that includes agents such as myself trying to put the strategic ideal buyers and sellers together, because it takes time.
Rock, could you illustrate some of this in some case studies?
The first one is actually started in 2012. I was approached by a print owner, family business, brother and sister act, sister not in the business, second generation. Basically, we did an assessment on the financial aspect of it and the posturing of a sale, and it was hopeful within a year or two. Well, it actually took 5 years, because it took that much time to put the financials in place, the expectations in place, the multiple in place. And what was attractive to the buyer was basically the organization was over 50 years old. It was a good brand. However, it was considered a mom and pop type operation that needed to become more professional, get the infrastructure in place, invest in some equipment, diversify, put some money in the website, put some money into people, developed more of a strategy of a long-term exit versus a 12 to 24 month. They actually extended to 3 to 5 years, and they achieved what they needed to do. And they sold to a global enterprise.
I'd imagine that it takes a certain amount of discipline to stick with it.
Oh, I heard a lot about disagreement about the difficulty of discipline because people have a gut feel. And when they got this gut feel, you just never know. It's kind of like the NFL draft. You're looking at the combine, you're looking at talent, and people are basically going on gut instinct. Sure, they take analytics and so on, but eventually someone's going to have to make the decision, invest in it, and stay the course. And once you stay the course, it takes time. You see the analytics, you see hopefully improvement, and once you make that improvement, you're ready to rock and roll. I see a lot of sellers looking at buyers as if, look at me, I'm a gem. Well, what they don't realize is that there's a lot that is brought into the situation, and that's quantitative and qualitative information, and it takes multiple people to make this decision. And let's face it, bottom line is cash. What's the return on investment? What's the expectation? And very few people, like a bank, are going to take a risk. Maybe you have a good relationship. Maybe you know the relationship and the chemistry. But bottom line here is what's the expectation of return on investment? And there's two rules that Warren Buffett always talks about. Rule number one, never lose money.
It's a good one.
Rule number two, revert to rule number one.
That's even better. And I think you were mentioning to me earlier that a big concern is time, and especially the idea of don't waste my time.
Well, think about that. 5 years in this last example to make something happen. But when I got that text the day he closed, Rock, thank you for the guidance, the right direction, I felt pretty damn good about that situation. And then there's always the speed to close. That's today's version. Some people don't have 5 years. They don't have 5 years to make it all happen. And there's always this discussion about, is there a need to sell or is it a greed to sell? So that becomes very interesting too, about a compromise and having the agreement to invest. Because once you sell, it's not just over. It just begins. The journey begins for both parties, depending on how you structured yourself for the future.
And I could see where some people may think that selling their printing business is, or even, buying a printing business is like buying a house. It's not the same thing.
No, it's not. I mean, bottom line here is there's a value of everything. If you have if you're interested in an operation, let's say for an example, you're the buyer and you really want to buy something and you feel like it's going to be a great fit and it's going to be the ideal opportunity to take you to the paradise and in a short amount of time. It doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen like that. And it's just like your home. There's stepping stones to homes. You start early in your career, you have a starter. Or you have a beginner of a family, and then all of a sudden there's an empty family, and then there's a downsizing, and there's eventually buy to lease or rent, whatever the scenario is presented for your family, whatever you can afford. Well, when you look at a printing business, you have a lot of people involved. And there's someone that's got to make that decision. Who are the buyers? Is it an individual? Is it a family? Is it multiple partners? I mean, believe me, it could be very, very complex. And people don't realize that at the beginning, there's always an end. And when that end comes about, those are the times when I see a seller and a buyer, when there's multiple owners and multiple buyers, and that just the fact of a compromise could take months to years. Okay? And guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. You lose the deal. Today's world, it's timing, it's time of essence, and speed to close. That's the term, speed to close. I've seen deals happen in 60 to 90 days.
Wow.
And it's happening. Why? Because they're strategic. The buyer and seller they are ready, they're prepared, They're ready, willing, and able. And you have to qualify for each one of them. And that makes it a little bit more smooth because there's always that post-transaction. What's next? It's just like the administration. The administration, the first 100 days, what are you going to do in the first 100 days? If you're the seller, what are you going to do? If you're the buyer, what are you going to do in those first 100 days? It's very, very important. Those first 100 days it's basically a quarter. You got to move, you got to groove, and there's no guarantees. People have to understand there's no guarantees that things are going to be successful. It's up to you, the people, the strategy, the execution, and let's face it, cash.
You remind me of we were talking earlier about the NFL draft, and all these players are being drafted. And then it really is up to the team to start to develop the player, where the day after the draft, they usually bring them to the city, introduce them to the fans. But then it's really like, get them into the classroom, get them signed, get them in the playbook, and then get them on the field. It's not just a one thing and you're done. It's the beginning of a long process.
Very much so. And it all starts at the ownership level. The organization, an owner, there's a general manager, there's a coach, and look at all the specialists that are involved.
Nutritionists, trainers.
Oh, it's unbelievable what that organization really consists of. And the investment all the way around. It's just not players' cap, players' contracts. And what do they say about the NFL? It's not for long.
Very true.
Well, most printing businesses, you're looking for sustainability. You're looking for many, many years of legacy and growth.
In just a moment, we're going to talk about our next episode and what you can expect then. But first, I want to remind you that this podcast is presented to you by the LaManna Alliance. And remember, you can get a slice of Rock LaManna pretty much anytime because Rock has a major online world. So, Rock, if someone wants to connect with you in the LaManna Alliance, how would they do that?
Well, thank you, Ken. First of all, rocklamanna.com, free subscription to monthly e-news. Monthly e-news is basically what's been happening, what's coming down the road, a lot of free downloads of information that are very helpful for buyers, sellers, valuations, and so on. Not only the e-news, my blog. Every month we have some type of blog and information coming out. LinkedIn, Rock LaManna. We also have LNNW, which I am a columnist that you could subscribe for free for not only the print version, but the online version. So there's no problem contacting Rock at rocklamanna.com, and all my information is basically on the website.
Perfect. And if I remember right, Rock, you said your newsletter comes out, I think it's the second Sunday of every month.
That's correct.
Next time when we get together, we're going to be talking, I understand, a little bit about the post-transaction, the post-close in a deal.
Very exciting. People don't know what to expect. They just think, hey, you close it and you walk away from it. No. The seller's got responsibility. The buyer has responsibilities and roles. And that's the integration and that transition of both sides. And there's always some type of a structure that's developed on what to do next, depending on how flexible both parties are.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. In the meantime, if you'd like to connect with me, my name is Ken Okel. I'm a professional speaker who helps people deal better with working under pressure. You can go to my website, which is kenokel.com. That's KENOKEL. Love to connect with you there as well as on LinkedIn. So, Rock, as we always say at the end of the episode, see you in the marketplace.
This is the Prince's Edge with Rock LaManna. Thanks for listening.